Okay, so today, grade 9s, keep in mind, whatever sounds you make is going to record. So I don't think it heard that. Today we are going to go over a document that is titled Understanding Source Analysis. So earlier, one of you asked, also I can't say your names while I'm recording. I was given that advice, so just keep in mind. One of you asked earlier that, what is a source analysis? So grade 9s, have you ever had to look at an image and tell the teacher or on an assignment, girls, had to analyze what that image was trying to tell you? Just raise your hand. Okay, maybe you've done this in LA, maybe you did in grade 8 social studies. Okay, so some of you have done this, okay? So we're gonna go through this process. So I want you to follow along at the top of this page. So I won't make you do a 4-paragraph essay in this class, but we will build the skill set that will prepare you for high school. And in high school, a source analysis essay, boys, is always 4 paragraphs, okay? You have 3 sources, and then you have a conclusion paragraph. So source analysis essays, they require no introduction. So if you recall in language arts, you have to give a little introduction. You have to briefly explain the topic. You don't need to do that for sources, okay? You are analyzing and responding to what you are seeing and reading in your sources. These essays in high school are always attached to a particular question. And the question is based on what the course is, okay? You can ignore that little blurb about Social Studies 30. We will do a little bit of quote analysis in this class as well. Now, a key point for when you're analyzing a quote, do we know what a quote is? It's something someone has said, right? It should be in quotation marks. When you're analyzing a quotation from someone, in your paragraph, in your essay, you don't want to put the entire quote and then start talking about it. It looks really bad. In the Social 30-1, the diplomas, you never see them do that. They never just take the whole quote at the start of their paragraph and start analyzing it. You want to break it down into parts. The reason we break it down into parts is so that you can demonstrate to the person reading your essay that you understand exactly what is going on piece by piece, step by step. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I don't yet know how to explain that in a more simpler way, right? You break it up so that you demonstrate you know exactly what you're talking about and where you can find that in the quote. Okay. For images, which is what we're going to do for our assignment today, you need to reference some of the symbols you see, some of the labels that exist, some of the words. And for the next video I make, we'll talk about that with our assignment, okay? Basic grammar rules still apply, grade 9. So just because it's a social studies essay and we're not exactly marking all your capitalization, your periods, your commas and all that, right? Because in LA, they'll really dock you marks for bad punctuation. Basic grammar rules still apply. You're still expressing your capability of writing, okay? So that includes capitalization, sentence structure, etc. I can add more stuff in there later. You want to be as objective as possible. Now there's examples of what that means. So if you look right below that statement, none of the following, I think, in my opinion, I statements. Social studies is quite different from LA in that regard. You want to be objective. So rather than saying, I think we should do this, you can say subjectively, one of the possible solutions to this problem is, okay? And you don't need to really understand in grade 9 why that is. It's partly related to how they write essays in university, okay? And I won't bore you with that. A better alternative is saying, well, the speaker suggests, the author, the source supports, okay? You want to be objective, and we'll break that down in our next assignment, okay? Right below, and I clearly need to restructure this document, you always want to indent the start of a new paragraph. So when you go from speaking about the first source to the second source, you indent, okay? That's just like hitting the tab button on your keyboard. That's all you're doing. The reason you do that is so that the reader can clearly tell when a new idea starts, right? You don't want to just submit a wall of text. You need some breakup of paragraphs. You need to know when it starts, sentences, commas, all that sort of stuff, okay? Last but not least for this first half of the document, plagiarism. I need you all to understand this, especially when you start going into high school. So plagiarism, the quote is there, or the definition. It is the practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one's own. So if you reference something from a website, if you just copy paste something, that is plagiarism. It's cheating. I'm going to give you a big fat goose egg. Okay, that's a 0 for the uninitiated. You're going to get a 0, and if you look at my course outline, you don't get to redo the assignment. Okay, and when we do start doing some stuff digitally, I'll help you with that. Okay, if you read an article and go, Mr. Khawaja, I want to use some of the information I learned from this article, I'll teach you how to properly source that for grade 9 level, okay? So, if you use someone else's writing, if you're just looking at the 2 bullet points there at the bottom, you must put it into quotation marks. So if you recall in LA, when you were writing about your novel studies, you needed references from the book. When you reference things, you put into quotation marks, right? Like the gesture is this. These are quotation marks, okay? The reason you do that is so that you can identify to the reader that this is not my words. I'm taking this from somewhere else. And then how many of you also put the page number right after the quote? Just raise your hand. Just a couple of you, okay? That's not good, okay? Second point there. If you add someone else's writing or ideas, you must also reference it. Okay? So let's say you read something from the textbook or an article online, you were doing some research, maybe you went to the Wikipedia page because that's a great place to start your research. Put that link, the website link, at the bottom of your essay under a section titled References. Okay, so that way, if when I go to check to see if you plagiarize anything, it says, hey, there's some information here that looks very suspicious. We found this website has this information. I can just go to your sources and I can see, oh, the student referenced that website. Oh, you're good. Okay, that's not cheating. Okay, especially for the grade 9 level. That's more than enough to ask for you kids, okay? And then, yeah, that warning at the bottom. If you do not list where you got your information from, you will be flagged for plagiarism and can be given a 0. The reason why I wrote can be given a 0 is because I'll judge based on how generic the sentence is. Meaning if it's something that's kind of very basic, everyone should know, nothing very sophisticated, I'll go, hey, you know what, this is a generic sentence, I'm not going to give this person a 0. Flipping over, the general writing guide. So this is more so for high school. We will do a portion of this for our assignment, but this video will be designed for everyone. So you have your paragraphs 1, 2, and 3. This is your source analysis. For your diploma essay, you will have 3 sources. You'll never have 2, you'll never have 1, you have 3. And if you miss a source, let's say you're just like, hey, you know what? I'm tired of this diploma. I'm bored of this essay. I'm just not going to write about source 3. I don't really understand source 1, and you don't write about these things. You're going to lose a lot of marks. Okay? So you must write about all 3 sources. If you go into the breakdown of those first 3 paragraphs, the first thing we'll do, and we're going to work on this with the assignment. Okay? So don't think that we're just doing instructions. So make sure you are paying attention. If not, you can always go back and watch this video. Okay, interpreting the source. So you summarize what you are seeing in the source or what you're reading. So you might be thinking, well, why do I have to do that? The person marking can just see it. What that demonstrates is that you're able to understand what the important information is and what the non-important information is. Okay, I hope that's clear enough. Now, when we see our picture, our assignment, we'll do that breakdown, okay? If it is a quote, take it apart in pieces. Do not add the entire quote at the start of your paragraph. Every excellent essay I've read for 30-1, there's diploma exemplars, they always interpret the source at the start. They introduce what they're seeing and how it relates to the subject matter. They then move on into the author's perspective. So, and I have a better question in your assignment, but what is the meaning or message being expressed in the source? So what is this person trying to communicate to you? right? So if I just held up a big red poster, can you possibly interpret that? Maybe, maybe not. Let's say it's in the shape of an octagon and it's red. Anyone seen that symbol before? A red octagon? What is it? Stop sign, right? So maybe we can make connections, right? So what is this image? What is the author trying to tell you with this image? Okay. We'll slowly work on understanding what bias is and how to detect that. That might be quite challenging for you, but you're all capable of getting it. We'll work on that together slowly, but it's always good to acknowledge if the source, if the image has a bias, if they lean one way or the other, okay? And if there is a bias, then you should address that. And the reason why you bring that up is so that you're demonstrating to the person marking your critical thinking ability. That's what social studies is trying to build. Your capacity to think critically about difficult information. Okay. Next up, and this is more for the high school essays, you need to identify links to the course material. So grade 10 is about globalization, grade 11 is nationalism, grade 12 is ideologies. Grade 9 is more about Canadian governance, the first portion of the course, and the second half of the course is about economics. Okay, so you always want to connect back to what you're learning. Examples you saw in class, in lecture, right? The notes packages, questions from the textbook, okay? You always want to be able to reference back to something you've learned to support your argument. Right? So if I just say it's sunny outside, or it's bright, you know, there's no support for that statement. Okay, I'm just trying to make an example off the top of my head. This is not the best one, but I could say, I know that it's bright outside because there is no cloud cover. So there's no clouds and the sun is shining. It's daytime. That's why it's bright outside. I've added in a little bit of evidence to support why I think it's bright outside. Okay, that's what I mean by that. And then in your paragraph, you always have 1 to 2 sentences that conclude your paragraph but reconnect to the main point of that paragraph. Okay. For paragraph 4, you have analyzing relationships. So describing relationships among the sources. You have 3 sources. There's going to be something that connects them. Usually, it's your course content. So either like globalization, nationalism, or ideologies. We won't necessarily do more than 2 sources for grade 9 because dealing with 3 sources is a big step. But again, as I mentioned, grade 9 is about Canadian governance and economics. Okay. Describing relationships between the sources. So when you write a 3-source paragraph, there's going to be a relationship between source 1 and 2, source 1 and 3, and source 2 and 3. What is that relationship? So what is the connection between these 2 things? Okay, that's what you're looking to do. Now, the most important note about this 4th paragraph that's different to language arts, in social studies, in your last paragraph, you don't add in new arguments. You don't bring in new evidence. You might be tempted to do that. I'll tell you right now, you're going to lose marks. Okay, because you're adding in all this new information. You're not putting support in there. You didn't mention it earlier in your opportunity to write an argument, create a position. Don't add in new stuff in your last paragraph. Always reconnect to what you've already written. Okay? And that summarizes the Understanding Source Analysis Essays document.